Tonight we started the session called Burnt Out to Brilliant, and we introduced ourselves, Radha and I. I'm a midwife, we're both midwives. Radha's still working as a clinical midwife, and I took early retirement about 15 years ago, but I've been working as a non-clinical midwife ever since. And I've been a midwife since the 1970s. Radha is also a health coach as well. So, we decided to do this because both of us are interested in the same topic. We've just recorded a podcast, and Radha's written a fabulous blog post for All for Maternity. So I just wanted to say, this is kind of like highlighting some of the parts of my career where I'm a mum, I'm a grandma, I've been a midwife, like I said, since the 70s, and now I do mainly talks. That's me in the middle with Sue Down, doing a talk in Australia, and I write books. And in my career, I've been bullied. I've had a 9-year litigation case against me. I've had so many challenging situations, but on top of that, I've had the most phenomenal, amazing, uplifting, life-changing, wonderful experiences being a midwife. And they always are the things that stay close to me, but I'm still challenged even now on a daily basis when I'm doing my work as a midwife. And so yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. And this talk is focusing on the world, not just on the United Kingdom, but whatever I do is I take a global perspective. And everything that I do in my work now, especially with my daughter Anna, where we own All for Maternity and the Practicing Midwife and the Student Midwife journals, everything that we do is based on compassion and courage, and this is us holding up the world. So it's just kind of a global perspective. And if we think about the year of the nurse and the midwife, and the fact that the 5th of May this year was a huge celebration, but also the whole of the year is to be, and I know it's been extended, but the International Confederation of Midwives have told us that we must celebrate, and we should celebrate, because we have got the best jobs in the world. Student midwives, even though we are we have this oppression, we've still got the best job in the world. And the ICM last year told us that we should be with women to celebrate, with women birthing people, to celebrate what we do, to demonstrate what we do, to kind of highlight the evidence, which I'll come on to, but also to demonstrate when things aren't right, and to mobilize and to speak out when things aren't right, together with women, with birthing people, with families. We should, if we do it all together, then we're going to make a massive difference. So by uniting, we can really transform maternity services. These are some of the midwives that I've met and been with in my career. Some of them I'm really involved in, others are just people who I've kind of come across, but I have a lot of passion for them all, and for any midwife who's working wherever in the world. And this is just showing you that actually, in our country and in other European countries like Holland, for example, midwives are free to practice. Women can choose their place of birth, and we're very lucky. So even though we've got all this oppression, and we are, many midwives are talking about being burnt out, then we still have this amazing opportunity that we can deliver care that in many countries it's illegal. So midwifery is not allowed in some countries, and in other countries midwives are absolutely treated with contempt. So we are lucky that we are working in that kind of an environment. And also we must know that the evidence tells us that access to quality midwifery care, and quality midwifery care is there's a whole frame around that, can avert 80% of maternal and newborn deaths and stillbirths. So imagine that your work can do that. So just that is kind of the most phenomenal impact that our work has. And my kind of stance is always that every single woman who gives birth deserves to have a humanized experience, that it really matters to her whether she has a planned cesarean section, an emergency cesarean section, which Claire on the left has had, or Heather Grimm has had a water birth. However a woman gives birth, she deserves to have that dignity and respect, and to have relational care, whether it's just meeting her for that moment or whether it's a built-up relationship, but she deserves that. And that's, I know, what we're all aiming for.
Yeah.
And that, you know, this is we also know care is actually there's somebody speaking, I can hear. The humanization of care is actually about too the acknowledging the fact that actually in some countries, in middle to high income countries, there's too much intervention, that we're doing unnecessary interventions, and yet in other countries, in low income countries, the resources aren't there. So there's a huge gap, huge inequality, and we have to try to bridge that gap because both things are unacceptable. So in order to humanize birth, we need to bridge that gap. We know that women are unhappy. Women report being unhappy and that with their birth experience more and more. And we have in the United Kingdom and in America, we have reports that are telling us that women from black and brown background, so women that are black or brown, have worse outcomes than white women. This is unacceptable. This is a huge injustice, and it's down to mainly individual and systemic racism, as well as other things, but that's got to be stamped out. And in order for us to really address these huge inequalities, then we have to really pay attention to what our own biases, and also to challenge others with theirs too. So, you know, these are things that affect us. And the pandemic has caused a mayhem, hasn't it? It's caused even a worse situation. First of all, women's rights are being erased. And these are reports from all over the world, including our own country. And also health professionals, midwives, doulas are being excluded. Midwives are feeling overworked, overpressured. Student midwives are being displaced out of practice. They're having to work online. Midwifery lecturers are finding it stressful. Everybody has been impacted by this pandemic. And so we have to listen and acknowledge that this is going on, as well as all the stuff around the PPE. There's huge, huge issues. And Radha and I wanted to really acknowledge that you're working under extremely, extraordinarily difficult circumstances. So what can we do? And you've heard from Radha this evening. You've kind of heard it back to front because I've not recorded my session properly at the beginning. But what can we do? There's all the things that Radha talked about earlier, all the things that you can really look into, you know, those strategies, and contact Radha. But on top of that, some simple things, just really kind of that can help. The first thing is really learn and understand what the humanization of childbirth is. We've done lots of kind of publications in the Practicing Midwife about the humanization of birth. We've actually created an ebook. But this is something that I'm so passionate about. It's about building relationships. It's about looking after yourself, looking after each other, and looking after those you care for with compassion and love and kindness, but also about not having a fear-driven service and not doing interventions unnecessarily. So compassion and courage are like the tenet of a good maternity care, because really, you know, we all have to have the right skills. That's fundamental. That's the floor is that we have the right skills. But what takes us to the ceiling is the compassion and courage that we have and that we display in practice. And there's lots of ways that we can help ourselves to understand the importance of compassion and courage. And first of all is really acknowledging, what is compassion? What does it mean? And actually it's not just a soft thing about being kind, because kindness is absolutely crucial, but this is not just about that. It's actually one of the most important declarations of strength and courage known to humanity. It's difficult and powerful. It's infectious and influential. And actually, crucially, it's perhaps the most universally recognized language with the ability to change the world. So imagine when you've got all these inequalities, and especially when there's language barriers, and we talk a lot about language barriers, really, really important when we're delivering care. But, you know, if you've got compassion, then those barriers don't exist. So, you know, they're lessened. And Michael West and Susan Bailey have written a lot and done a lot of online talks about compassionate leadership. And actually, they've just published a report about compassionate leadership, which is really worth reading. And if you Google If you Google the King's Fund and you Google Michael West, you'll find it all there. But what they say is that you absolutely need compassionate leadership to move services forward. This is about really caring for each other. It's empathizing with the people around you, feeling their fears, stresses, uncertainties and anxieties and exhaustion. And it provides the motivation to always ask the question, how can I help you? And that's the most important task, they believe, of leadership. And this is something that I practiced. I tried to practice in my work as a midwife, and not necessarily when I was in a leadership role, but we all have the potential to be leaders if we just look after each other. So the future is, given that there's disquiet nationally and internationally about the high levels of intervention, this is Sue Down talking now, and about women's views and staff morale, a salutogenic approach might create the energy to make changes that appear to be elusive. So salutogenic approaches is about focusing on well-being instead of always thinking about the risks and always going down a negative line. We have to be aware of the risks and we have to pay attention to them. But we also have to look at what are the positives, what are the brilliant things that are happening and how can we learn from them? What good things are happening in this woman's life and how can we nurture that? What brilliant things are happening on this shift? Who is the one that's making a difference on that shift? How can we tell her what a difference she's making? So, you know, be inspired by people like Lucia Rocca, who held a fabulous conference in Barcelona last year. She brought midwives together who were not allowed to provide midwifery-led care and gave them the tools to be able to do it. She's created documents for birth centres, for midwifery-led units, and she's actually changing the world. And then you've got midwives like Joanna and Ilona from Bulgaria, newly qualified midwives who didn't want to continue providing care like the top left-hand corner, where women before coronavirus, where midwives wore masks and gowns and hats, and midwives had to lie on the bed flat. They weren't allowed to move off the bed. They're now, these two midwives, bottom left-hand corner, are providing care in Bulgaria in a private clinic. That's the only way they can do it at the moment. And they have huge challenges from everybody else in the country. Most people in the country challenge what they're doing. So look at the difference between the care they're providing, humanized maternity care, because they've got courage and they've got compassion to do that. Imagine how they've had to struggle in their country to do it. So we are lucky that we are able to provide care most of the time that we want to. So just briefly to finish, from me to you, a personal message is, always remember your eyes and the smile that you give to others, because when people are worried and afraid, when I was in hospital, when I was really, really sick 2 years ago, the people that I looked for were the ones with the smiley eyes. And it's even more important now that we're wearing masks, that you give that connection with women and your colleagues, because smiling makes a huge difference to the others, especially when they're afraid, like I said, but also to your colleagues as well. And this is my favorite slide. So this is about love, and it's not about being in love. It's about loving yourself first and foremost, which Radha's talked about. Self-care, looking after yourself, finding out what helps you to feel relaxed, what helps you to get through situations. It's also about loving each other, giving each other authentic, positive feedback, telling your colleagues when they've done something positive. Just it really does make a difference, and it helps them it gives a ripple effect, because what they do is they do it to others, and then they do it to others. And then what you find is you shift the culture of the place that you're working. And I gave you an example earlier of when I did it with a doctor, but I've done it many times, and I've seen the absolute difference it makes to a shift, even when you're doing that. And also when you give authentic, and it has to be authentic. And when I say that, it has to be real. So it has to be like the way I saw you care for the woman in room 2 was just incredible. The way you switched the lights down, the way you reassured her, the way you rubbed her back, you know, I could just see that it made a difference. That's the kind of feedback that people deserve. You know, go to your leaders and tell them that you really appreciate the way that they help you to change your shift. don't think that managers are just doing things in ivory towers to make your life hard. It's that sometimes it's as hard for them. We're all in it together, really. So, it's not just about the American, have a nice day, you're great, you. It's about really thinking about what somebody's done and giving them that authentic feedback. And then it's about loving the people that you care for. And again, not in being in love, but remembering why you came to this job and actually giving them that connection. Because even if you're short of time, putting a little bit of time in right at the beginning often saves time later on. And I learned that when I was a patient 2 years ago, and I really felt loved by some of the nurses, even though they were all working hard. Some of them were better than others. So gather your tribe around you. This isn't about forming cliques, exactly the opposite. Be open, be welcoming to others, but like-minded people getting together, so that if you do have to have a difficult conversation, if you do have to challenge status quo, if you have to go with a complaint, then you have those people around you. And there might be people from all walks of life, but you do need your tribe. I wouldn't have managed in my career without my tribe, and I've still got them, and it grows my tribe, and I have different tribes for different things. And as I say, they're not cliques, they're really open. Courageous conversations, these are difficult things that we have to say to others sometimes. So do you know, like when somebody's saying something that's really mean, we've been having loads of comments tonight from students who've been saying that mentors have said things to them, or someone else has said something really disempowering or really disrespectful. Then we have to sometimes, say things like, actually, did you really mean to say that? Did you really mean to say that? Just pick, get people to stop in their tracks. They shouldn't be saying it. Courageous conversations are always easier if you've given authentic, positive feedback. And courageous conversations many times need support from others. So always get some help when you're about to talk to someone in a way that you feel might be a bit worrying. Remember who you are. Remember what got you in to be a student midwife. Remember what got you into the job that you've got at the moment. What did you say in your interview? Who did you proclaim to be? Remember that that's what you want to be. Don't fit in with negative cultures. You will meet negative cultures. Absolutely, every single maternity services have individuals or groups of individuals who are critical of others, who roll their eyes, who tut-tut, who like to be in little groups and pull others down. Even though it's hard not to fit in with them because you're worried about that, try to remove yourself from that situation. You sometimes have to challenge what people are saying, like, did you really mean to say that about that person? Because believe you me, if you start to fit in with it, you will spiral downwards and you will go down, and it'll be a vicious circle, and you will never be trusting of those people, because one day they'll be talking about one person and the next time it'll be about you. So don't be in that group of people. Make your own groups, form your own positive groups, and do wonderful things. Act with compassion. This is when you see something that's good, which I've just said. So first of all, acknowledge that you've seen something good, commend that person, and then ask them to teach others how to do it. Start a book club. If you've got a good book that you feel can make a difference to changing maternity care, there's loads out there, then start a book club. Get lots of different individuals to read and meet up online and talk about the chapter that you've read and see how you can help each other. Amazing way to be supportive. We have to be brave, right? So sometimes we feel like pussycats and we're trying to be like a lion. For most of my career, I've been scared stiff, like I'm still scared of some situations. I'm not always brave. I try to build up my resilience to be brave, but I do rely on others to help me to be brave, and we do need to be. I've had to be brave to do this session tonight, believe it or not. And love without expectation. That means don't expect anything back. A bit like paying it forward, give someone loads of support and just don't expect it back. But believe you me, it will come back. 100-fold. It will be there waiting for you when you need it. Use your voice. I hear student midwives say to me, oh, but I'm only a student midwife. No, actually, I've met loads of student midwives who've been the change. They're the ones who are championing. You know, you are so important, student midwives. You're the eyes and ears of a maternity services, and especially during COVID, you are the champions. You know, use your voice, because you're very powerful. Whatever you're doing in maternity services, we need your voice. Remember what the ICM said, let's unite, stick together, stay together. For those of you working in maternity services, always keep those you serve at the centre of all your actions. This was told to me many, many years ago, and I always tried to do this. Speak up for your rights to have enough time and resources to provide the care you're qualified to give. You know, really crucial. And this is Franca Cadé, who is the president of the ICM, and she tells us, she encourages and urges midwives to stop being well behaved and take on their duty to advocate for women, a woman's right to have a good birth. And I totally agree with her. Don't wait for your manager, be the change you wish to see in the world. Remember that, you know, if we focus on safety and not on risk, on relationship-based care, not on system-based care, we could make maternity care safer for everyone, women, health professionals and organisations. And that's from Hannah Darlan. So the greatest joy is to become a mother. The second greatest is to become a midwife. That's a Norwegian proverb. And if there are any doulas in the room, in this room, or any other maternity workers, I guess you feel the same too. But look at the joy on, I know this midwife, and I know this mother, and I know this baby. So just look at the joy on all the faces. And this is what we want, isn't it? This is what we're aiming for. And why should we not have it? So thank you so much.
So I guess what kind of guided me towards coaching midwives was it was unexpected, to be honest, because you know, I'm a midwife, I'm an antenatal educator, I'm passionate about sort of birth trauma. After having a traumatic experience myself, I kind of wanted to do some extra training to help women and birthing people to be able to advocate for themselves in labour and be able to sort of really advocate their wishes and what they wanted. And I thought, well, why is it that some people really can kind of put themselves out there and say what they want, and whereas other people are really kind of they get like imposter syndrome almost in their own birth, and they're really worried about how they're going to be perceived by the people that are caring for them. And it just took me down this massive massive journey, really. And that's how I discovered emotional health coaching, and that's why I decided to qualify. And I actually then realised that, you know, the more I thought about it, the more I reflected on my own journey, the more I realised actually it's midwives that are, you know, the gatekeepers of birth. And actually, if we help the midwives to be the best they can be, then they're going to be giving the very best care they can give. And it's going to be all round really positive. A really positive experience for women if our midwives are, you know, are authentic, and they are kind of speaking their truth, and they are, you know, practicing from a place of love and compassion, all the things that Sheena said. And it was only by kind of really thinking about it that it led me to do what I do. So I'm going to just briefly speak about what emotional health is. Okay, so emotional health is the sorry.
No, can I just, because some people have just started joining us, and still, I think they need to turn off their. Everybody mute, please. Sorry to ask you. Could you all mute your microphones? Is that that's better? I think that the folks that just joined us, they maybe had theirs on. So thank you. Sorry, Radha.
No problem. Sorry. It's fine. So what is emotional health? So emotional health is the missing link between a person's mental and physical health. Okay, it's not about being free from mental and physical health problems, but being your best self. It's about gaining mastery of your thoughts, emotions, behaviours, and allowing your mind and body to work optimally. And this in turn reduces the amount of stress and pressure experienced by the challenge of everyday life. Okay, so a reduction in the stress and pressure will have a positive impact on your mental health, allowing you to keep perspective and move forward. It will also have a positive impact on your physical symptoms, such as heart rate, blood pressure, hormone balance, digestive system, sleep patterns, tension, migraines, etc. So just like plants, and I'm going to get my little blackboard, my whiteboard here, just to make sure the screen's visible. So I'll make sure it's on the screen here. So when you are a newly qualified midwife or a student midwife, and your little kind of sapling is pushing up out of the earth, and you're starting on your journey to being a midwife, or, you know, further into your career, blowing and the big massive storms and the lightning. Okay, so that little sapling, with all that going on above the soil, it's very likely that they're not going to be able to survive. They're going to be ripped to pieces, and they're not going to be able to thrive. So what that little flower needs, and if again you know the flower's relation to you as a midwife or a doula or a student midwife, that flower needs a strong root system. Okay, so it needs
Radha, I think your Wi-Fi is disconnecting.
that it can happening.
You're freezing.
Oh, am I?
Is anybody else seeing that? Can you nod if you're seeing it? Yeah, it's freezing. When you're turning away, it's freezing. It's frozen again now. Oh, the joys of technology.
Problem. I've got full signal. I'll just pause a minute and see if it catches up.
Yeah, sorry, because when you turned away, it just froze, and it's frozen again now.
Has it?
No, it's fine now. It's okay.
Oh, is it okay? All right then. It's just the gremlins in the technology. So what the flower needs to be able to weather all this storm is a very strong root system. Okay, so just like the plants need water, nutrients, sun.
Oh, that's a shame. It keeps doing this. Sorry, Radha, it's doing it again. Hello, Radha, you're frozen.
Is it? Oh, what do you think?
It just keeps freezing. We can't hear you.
Okay. Do you think I should leave and come back on the 4G on my phone, or carry on?
Maybe do that. Yes, I'll let you in. If you'd come on your phone, it might be easier. Have you got the link?
I have. Yeah, bear with me. I'll leave and come back. So sorry. Let me come back.
No, it's all right. This is the joys of
this is the joys of technology.
I know.
Let me not leave, because someone else might take my place if I leave too soon.
No, it's all right. It's all right. There's 2 more places.
Okay. So let me try and join here and see if we get 2 of me. Let's see what happens. Sorry, guys. Let's try and persevere.
I don't think you'll be able to come in twice, will you?
No, I'm going to leave.
Just leave the meeting and then come back in again. Is everybody else okay?
Sorry, guys. Let's leave.
Right, I'll have to wait until she comes back because there's so many people waiting to get in. Here we go. Admit. Hopefully she'll come back now.
Okay. Are we winning? Are we winning?
Yeah, they can see you now.
I'm so sorry about that. The Wi-Fi.
Don't worry. It's fine. Just relax, Radha. It's absolutely fine. Honestly, it's great.
We'll get there. So, lost my flow. It's fine. So, as human beings, like the flower getting beaten around in the wind and the rain, okay, that's our life. We're not going to have a life that's free of bumps, because that's just not reality. Okay, so what we need are strong psychological roots deep into the ground to keep us rooted and keep us fixed. Okay, so the strong psychological roots that we need as human beings are a strong sense of personal power or personal control. Okay, a reoccurring charge of self-confidence, and then building social resilience.
And these things together work to strengthen your psychological roots. And the stronger your roots, your bloom. Okay, and that's the whole point. Okay, that's everything that I do. So sometimes we can get caught up in certain patterns of behavior and thinking, feeling and behaving, which are unhelpful for us. And it can feel very difficult sometimes to break these patterns, as they may have slipped in under the radar, and we might have been running on these patterns for a very long time, and they've become really normalized. So what I do is I help people, I help midwives to identify the root cause of these patterns and what's been keeping them stuck in that cycle and why. So once someone understands why they've got stuck in the first place and learns some techniques of self-insight to change those patterns, it gives them then the control back and the power over their emotional health, and then they'll never look. Okay, so what I do is I help you as a midwife, as a birth worker, find your own unique formula to help you reconcentrate your midwife essence. And you might have heard me talk about this before when I've done for the podcast with Sheena. I talked about that, the sparkle, that essence of being a midwife. And I believe that all midwives and student midwives and birth workers are sparkly. We have that essence within us. And over time, the storms of life, our essence gets diluted. It loses its concentration. So I help you to be able to reconcentrate your midwife essence in the very most unique way to you and help you reclaim your sparkle. Okay, so we've had quite a lot of people asking about like resilience and what that means, and for us as midwives. And actually the term resilience, it's a bit of a buzzword in maternity. Sheena like speaks about it a lot as well. And I think often the word resilience is sort of seen as something that you've either got it or you haven't. And if you haven't got it, then you're rubbish and you need to find some. But actually, you know, beating ourselves up that we're not resilient enough, or how do you find resilience? Like, if you find some, can you let me have a bite of it? Because I you know, everyone's talking about it, but no one really kind of knows what it means or whatever. So just take a couple of seconds, you know, to think what resilience actually means for you. So sometimes in the context of maternity services, it can mean that, you know, just take whatever's thrown at you. Don't complain. Don't stick your head above the parapet. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep. If you're, you know, hard and you're struggling, then it's because you're not resilient enough, and it's your fault. Okay. So when I talk about resilience, especially in the one-to-one coaching that I do with midwives, I refer to it as emotional control. Okay. So it's that internal sense of personal power and control. A belief that we have the power to influence a situation and the internal resources to cope with challenging situations. All this, okay? So it's about accepting the situation that you're in. You don't have to like it, but you can choose either to think externally and believe that you're powerless, that you lack kind of any control or means to kind of influence a situation that you're in, or you can think very internally and take ownership of the way that you think and the way that you feel and the way that you respond, and have self-belief in your ability and realistic optimism. It's about realistic optimism. It's not about putting the rose-tinted glasses on. That's not the world that we live in. But in any situation, we will have influence over the way that we perceive the situation and the way that we think about it and the way that we then respond. Okay? So if you're thinking very externally, it's sort of, you know, believing in luck and fate, allowing external factors to control your life, letting others have more sway over your life, and suffering with fears, phobias, worries, ruminating thoughts. Basically me about 12 months ago, honestly. All these things just resonate so strongly with how I used to feel about all this. But having that internal emotional control is believing that you can strongly influence your own experiences, having clarity of mind, having high coping skills, having perspective over your problem, and then remaining tension free in your body. Okay, so the two main factors which influence your sense of emotional control or influence your emotional resilience in a situation is your belief in your ability to control or strongly influence a situation, and your belief in your ability to utilize your internal resources in a challenging situation, in the storms of life, in the storms of maternity systems, respond positively and bounce back from those external influences, bounce back from all this that's happening. So a couple of tips. So from my perspective, when I'm speaking to people, I'm talking about resilience, I say to build up your emotional control, think of in terms of today. So talk to yourself in positive present language. I can do this. I have the skills to cope. I can work it out. Don't berate yourself, talk yourself down, give yourself a hard time, be your own best friend, okay? Because if your internal dialogue all day, you're just beating yourself up and you're saying how, you know, telling yourself how bad you are and how you should have done better and you should know this and you should know that. I'm newly qualified, I've been through the training, now I've got my PIN, I should know this. I'm a third year student, I should know this. I'm 10 years qualified, I should know this. No, we're all still learning, okay? We're always learning. And actually recognising the effort that you put into your life and into your work and into your family and every area of your life, recognising the effort that you put in is really going to make a lot of difference to how you feel, because you need to see the value of the effort more than the value of the result. And that's how you help to kind of build up your self-esteem. It's how you help to build up your confidence. It's how you can change your mindset and your approach. I mean, and obviously, you know, it's beyond the scope of this webinar to go into sort of much more detail about it. But I'd love to know your thoughts about kind of resilience and what you understand resilience to be, and kind of what you've been told resilience is and what it means to you to be resilient, because you know, it certainly is this buzzword that people brandish around a lot, but no one really seems to kind of know what it is, you know, in terms of how do I show I'm resilient? Trying my best, is that not enough? Well, yes, it's enough, of course you're enough, but there's always more you can do on a personal level to be your own best. Does that make sense? So I think I'm probably gone on quite a long time, so I might open it up to questions, I think, and go back to Sheena, because I'm sure there'll be more to add. But I hope it's interesting as a bit of an overview of kind of discussion.
It was, Radha. One of the questions from Fran we'll do the questions that came to us before, but one in relation to, just let me, hello Pauline, I just wonder if you could mute your, Pauline, I wonder if you could mute your,
you want to know my name?
Oh, sounds like somebody's got a television on. Pauline is from Malta, and she's not got. Pauline, could you? I don't know how to mute you. Just 1 minute. Let me just see if I can mute. Anyway, I think she'll come on in she'll hear me in a minute. So actually, Fran has said, I agree that resilience has become another stick to beat ourselves with. I'm a PMA with particular interest in supporting students and newly qualified staff. Any tips?
Oh, so I think just echoing what you said, Sheena, like, you know, find your tribe. So, you know, seek out the people that need your help and be approachable, and you know, have a good understanding, I think, ultimately of yourself, having the self-awareness, especially myself as an emotional health coach, because now I kind of know what I know. I see it playing out everywhere. I see the different personality types, I see the different thinking styles, I see people going around the anxiety loop and what's happening for them. And once you kind of know, you see it in other people, and you're better placed to be able to help them. So I would say be approachable, and let people know where to find you, and start to develop an understanding of kind of just kind of how you tick and what makes, and what kind of what do I mean, like just having that awareness, I think, of what the challenges are going to be for these type of midwives and these students coming through, and just be approachable and encourage them to speak up when they need the support, because so often we are silenced. We think we shouldn't ask or we can't ask. So I think it's really important to keep your door open and be honest about your own struggles as well, because that's that human approach, like what Sheena was saying, like the humanization of childbirth. It's not just for the women and the birth people that we serve, but it's also for our colleagues as well. You know, a lot of my personal struggles are what's driven me to where I am, and I'm honest about the fact that I've got to where I am because of the struggles that I've come into contact with in my life, the self-doubt and the overthinking. So, you know, sharing, saying, you know what, I had that issue too, let's talk about it, how can we help you get to the bottom of it? So being authentic and being honest about your own struggles is really important as well.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of add to that, I because I know particularly, Fran, you're asking about tips for students, how you can support students. There's a really good, there's a lot of work being done by Billy Hunter and Lucy Warren, and there's a chapter in Roar Behind the Silence that's got the whole, there's a really good sort of, you know, how to build your, there's 3 types of ways that you can kind of make sure that you've got the best possible way forward in terms of resilience. And one of those is protecting yourself against things that are going to happen. So being aware of the things that trigger you. And the second thing is when something does happen, how to cope. And then the third thing is avoiding it in the first place. And I think there's a really good diagram that you can use in that. But I also, you know, when resilience is slated, I have to say that I think that, you know, for me, it's been really important being resilient. And I've even now, I need resilience. So I know that it's used, I know that sometimes it's used wrongly by systems and processes and organizations. But for me, like having personal resilience, you know, when I was targeted on social media, for example, if I didn't have that support mechanism around me and if I didn't know how to deal with it, and sometimes now I help other people to be resilient in that particular circumstance. And so it is important that we know what it is. So, you know, I do think that's very, you know, it's crucial really. So I'm just going to move on to another question because we've received loads of questions, and one of them was about, this is really interesting, and I hear a lot of this, and actually Amity Reid, who's written the book Overdue, and she was on Radio 4 this morning, and she was questioned about a practice in the United Kingdom where the services are being challenged to provide continuity of care, and midwives are finding that it's able to do it, and it's stressful, and they were already in stressful situation, and then they're having to do this. And I'm bringing this up, and I know that it's not relevant to everybody in the world, but it could be that this is a similar thing. So you might be working in your organization, and your organization or above brings in something that you feel it's unmanageable and you can't do it, and you were already feeling distressed. So one of the things that Radha and I have talked a lot about is how you have to have, you have to be able to be in a position to speak up about these things. And I wanted to tell you from the point of view as being a head of midwifery and a senior manager, sometimes I didn't know that midwives were struggling or that there was a particular issue because midwives might not be telling me, or, you know, and I've been in a position where I haven't wanted to tell the head of midwifery just in case she thinks I'm a wimp, or she might not give me a job later or something like that, you know. So it could be a mentor or it can be anybody, but we have to have that kind of, you know, we have to think of what Franca Caddy said, and we can't be good girls. We have to speak up and advocate for what women want. And we have to advocate for enough time and enough resources to absolutely do the right thing. And one of the things that always stuck in my mind was always do what's right for mothers and babies, but you have to also have it right for you. So you have to be happy in that practice. You have to, you know, be able to deliver care that in fact, if you're not right, then you're not going to be able to deliver the care. So what do you do about it? So first of all, you gather your tribe. So you gather people who are feeling like you. You gather people who actually, you know, you ask your colleagues, what do you think about it? And then what you do is you rationally you know, get together, get a plan together, a very simple plan. It doesn't have to be like a dissertation or anything, but just, you know, this is what's happening at the moment, and try to be solution focused. So try to come up with some solutions if you can. But I know you might not always be able to find the solutions, but sometimes when you get together, and also reach out to other organizations. So reach out to others who are doing things, and you can do that by, you know, for example, we've got a whole kind of plethora of good practice on orphan maternity blogs that are free, you know, open access. But you can also Google it, ask on Facebook, is anybody doing this? Is anybody, you know, is anybody doing well with continuity of care? Can you share information with us? How are you doing it? Can you help us to do it? And these are the ways that you make change happen, because you can't actually do it on your own. And that's when you start to pack in and think, I just can't do it, you know, and you want to leave because you're burnt out. So, you know, these mine are like practical tips that I'm talking about, but what Radha talks about is like the underpinning physiology and how you can develop other strategies to help you. But, you know, these are, you know, we know that these things are happening. They happen to me in practice, and, you know, you have to kind of have that stance to say, well, I'm not putting up with this anymore, because so Vicky's put, it's so difficult to be brave to speak up, because it can be seen that you're weak if you're struggling as a student midwife. Heard it said, you should know this, you're a third year. That's unacceptable. So if you hear that, I've just learned this actually from Ellie Durant, who's the wonderful midwife who's leads the secret community of midwives in the making. And I'm sure you all know Ellie. And she taught me this, because she's talked about it a lot, that you say, did you really mean to say that? You know, challenge it in a way that's, you don't have to be unkind. You can actually, you know, nobody deserves to be treated like that. But actually, you will, you know, it won't end. So unfortunately, it seems that midwifery practice and maternity services seems to be, you know, every country I go to, there seems to be this oppression and this challenge within it, midwives challenging midwives. So I've just got a private message from someone. We're all working in it. We must acknowledge the importance of kindness. We're all working in an already challenging environment, and now the pandemic, we're struggling in our own ways. I lead a team, and unfortunately I've been broken by my work environment, in that my team think that I'm superhuman with no feelings, home life, entitlement, work-life balance. I'm currently unable to work. Okay, so that's a really important message. And do you know, I felt like you. I've really felt like that sometimes. And I felt so saddened by the way that people have treated me, and when I've tried to be really kind to others. And this is what I'd like to say here is, let's flip it. And if you can, so not necessarily to the person who's given me this message, but for others in the room, if your leaders and those in senior positions, you know, it's really important that you talk to them about how they are, and especially if they're doing something really positive, give them some positive feedback, because actually by doing that, and try to do it in front of others, like this midwife, this leader who's just passed this message to me, I wonder if anybody's ever given her any positive feedback and said to her, do you know, you're really kind to us. Thank you for being so generous. Thank you for helping us so much, because she's a human being too. And I'll just give you a little story really quickly, but there was, when my mum had a stroke, and she was really, really ill, and she used to go in hospital a lot because she used to fall. Me and my sisters used to always be with her, and one day there was a particular doctor who came in to see her who was outstanding. She was absolutely wonderful the way she was with my mum, and actually all doctors and nurses should have been like her, but they weren't, and because she couldn't speak, and people treated her differently. Anyway, this doctor was amazing, so I went out to tell her afterwards to give her some positive feedback, and she was a senior registrar, and she just said to me, So I went over to her. She was back at the nurse's station, and I just told her how amazing I thought she was and what a difference she made to my mum. And she started to cry, and she was just overwhelmed by what I'd said to her. And she actually rushed off, and then she came to find me later, and she said to me, do you know, I'm a senior registrar, and in all my career, nobody's ever said that to me. Nobody's ever given me that feedback. And so I actually wrote to the chief executive about this registrar, and she said to me, I've had a really bad morning, because she's brought all the trauma from home. I had a really bad morning. I fell out with my husband. My children were naughty. I nearly crashed the car. And I've thought about leaving because I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed at work and I want to leave. But because you've said that to me, it's made me think about not leaving now. And I just didn't know that she was feeling like that. So let's look after each other and actually stop being mean to each other, and stop being mean, sort of criticizing. When I've been in situations where you go in the report room and everybody's talking about somebody or rolling their eyes. Don't accept it. Don't fit in with negative culture, because actually it does not make anybody happy, and it just makes unsafe services. So that, we have to stop doing that. I'm getting lots of messages now. As a newly qualified midwife, I was berated by a senior midwife for asking them to check a CTG. It completely shut me down, and I became tiny and lost. That's it. That's an example of absolute traumatic behavior, unacceptable behavior. So, in terms of, that is how we shouldn't be. And so you need support in challenging that. You need to go to someone who you trust, who you absolutely admire, and tell them what happened to you and ask them to help you to deal with it. Because actually that's making it unsafe and it's unacceptable. Radha, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think being kind costs nothing. And I really do try to go out of my way as much as I can, especially to senior managers who I actually really admire. I think they're doing a fantastic job in a really, really difficult time. And I do try and make a point of saying thank you. If you need a shift swap, you need something sorting, and they're rushing around and you do it, I say thank you. You've really made a difference to me. I like your approach. I can always come and speak to you. And just like your registrar story, Sheena, I don't think a lot of the time that people are used to hearing positive feedback. Yeah. Because is you've not done this, you've not ticked a box, you've not said this, you've not filed the thing in the right place, you've not ticked that button, and we're just used to kind of that tirade of negativity. We're kind of hyper vigilant towards that, and we're so worried about making a mistake, we make mistakes more because we almost become flummoxed with it. So I think if we just take the time, exactly like you said, and that so many wonderful people on here have said, being kind costs nothing. If you see someone and they do something wonderful, say that. I love the way you just reassured that woman while she was giving birth. I love the way that you did this for the dad, and whatever it is, just say it, because guaranteed, like with that registrar student, it might be the first time they've ever heard that, and it could really make the absolute difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lucy is saying that she does a weekly snap cup with team like Legally Blonde. We write positive comments about each other and we read them. We read them out after handover, and it really boosts morale, and all you need is a jam jar. And then Fran said she thinks everybody's emotionally exhausted, and and you take each other for granted. And yeah, emotional exhaustion is what Radha was talking about. And sometimes I feel emotionally exhausted when I've got my grandchildren, to be honest. But one of the things we can do is try, as well as the coping strategies that Radha was talking about, is that, listen to someone called Robin Youngson, who's done a lot of work about how when you're giving out emotionally, it actually it should recharge you if you're doing it in the right way. And he used to be a really bad-tempered anaesthetist his daughter actually had a really bad road traffic accident, and she was led on her back for months and months, and it taught him about the importance of compassion. Before then he wasn't very compassionate, and he completely changed the way he was. And he said it made him feel better that when he practiced in that way, when they looked after each other. So you know, doing things for each other. And this isn't to say that that makes everything right. So you can be as kind as you like, but if the system is wrong, then you have to deal with that as well. So building competence to deal with that is just as important as being kind. That's why courage and compassion go together. And it's not easy, like it's just not easy. It's something that you're constantly having to work on. And so, yeah, it's just, you know, I hope that this session has just helped a little bit to kind of, you know, kind of give a bit of an insight into what you can do to kind of help yourself. And just before we leave, and you know, I'm going to carry on and do my slides again, but just before we leave this session, I know Radha's going to talk about some resources that she wants to share with you. And for me, I mean, I meant to get them actually up to show you. So for me, there's Susan Saville is on this line. She's got a fantastic Facebook page about compassionate midwifery. And it's just wonderful because she's always sharing things, and midwives are sharing things with each other to look after each other. It's fabulous. And also, The Roar Behind the Silence is a book that I edited with Sue Down a few years ago, and it's used a lot by midwives to try to give them some ideas on how to challenge, how to transform services. And they're very short chapters, and there's little tips at the end. So there's, you know, that's another resource. And there's Hearts in Healthcare, there's books, there's lots of books. There's Paul Gilbert, who I mentioned before. His book is amazing. You know, there's lots of resources out there. Now I'm going to pass to Radha. You kind of give your resources.
That's fine. So I do work with midwives and birth workers one-on-one. I've got an 8-week program that I offer. And if anyone's interested in finding out more about that, I have got a website online, radhawilsonjeffries.co.uk. I'm on Facebook. Please send me a PM. Let's have a chat. Let's see, you know, if we're a good fit together. And I, you know, eventually would like to be, you know, obviously COVID restrictions are making it more difficult, but I would like to run some group sessions. So if you, you know, eventually either on Zoom or face to face, if you work in a hospital and you kind of, you know, like what me and Sheena have been talking about, or you work in the maternity system and you're interested in sort of having a group seminar, if you like, of like, it obviously wouldn't be the 8-week program in the same way, but certainly more about resilience, more about patterns of behavior and thinking styles and sort of mind-body connection, all the other things that I talk about. If you would like to potentially host a session like that, or you're interested in finding out the possibility of that, please message me directly. That's really something that I'd love to do, to be able to help more people and just get the message out there that you're not alone. So I want to leave you with my top few tips to build emotional resilience, because these are just my thoughts that I had. So know and respect your boundaries, maintain healthy relationships, gain self-mastery of your thoughts and emotions, show acceptance to yourself and others, be content in your own company, stay open-minded and open-hearted, make self-care a part of your daily routine, be willing to accept and offer help, be able to get out of your own head and move forward, and be your own best friend.
Oh, that's really, really fabulous. Now, how can we capture that? Somebody's asked for Susan, somebody's asked for the name of your Facebook page. So I think, would it be okay, Radha, if you, so it's called, so just tell us, Susan, what it's called, remind me, and then just write it in for everybody to see, if that's okay. And then would you mind posting all those things in that Facebook page, Radha? Just,
of course I will.
And on your Facebook page as well, on your Burnt Out to Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I just...
Go on. So yeah, I've got, obviously I'm on Facebook, but I've also got a private Facebook group with the same name of this seminar, so Burnt Out to Brilliant, helping midwives reclaim their sparkle. And I do loads of mini masterclasses in there. I'm always jumping on and doing lives about different topics. So if you've got something specific, please send me messages and you'd be welcome to join. You're all welcome to join.
Oh, that's fabulous. And you know something, Self-Care for Midwives, it's called Self-Care for Midwives on Facebook. Everyone's welcome. And Susan is the most wonderful midwife, and she's created that community in a nanosecond, and it's just phenomenal. I just have to read something to you all, because this is another, you know, when you see all this fabulous positivity coming out, I've lost it now. Tom Bridges, Tom, you've written, in our unit, we currently have a secret squirrel who leaves notes for people to let them know how great they are. And no one knows who it is, but it's so lovely to see people receiving the messages. Now, it's made the hairs on my arms stand up, because imagine if you found a letter and it said, you know, oh, I really liked how you did that. I used to tell the cleaners, you know, the way I saw you speaking to that lady when she walked over your cleaning, and you really made her feel good. Thank you for doing that. And the cleaner was saying to me, oh, did you really see that? You know, so that is just as simple. That's it. That's all it is. It's just being a human being and just loving each other. Loving each other is the most important thing. So please leave if it's, you know, the session is ended now. Because it's past, and I have to, Hannah's put, she does it in her unit as well. So yeah, you can leave if you want, or you can stay. You can stay whilst I do my slides again. My son's just texted me to say that he's on his way to pick something up, so he might appear in the kitchen. But I'll do my slides because we have promised that we will share this with everyone again. So please do leave if you've already heard my slides, but I'm going to repeat them again. And I'm so sorry that that there's only 100 people were allowed in, because I really didn't know that when I started. So yeah, so for those of you who are leaving, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining Radha and I tonight. This is the first time we've done this. If you think we should do it again, just let us know. Just send us messages on Facebook or wherever. We'd love to hear from you what you thought of it. And if you want anything else, if you want us to spend time on any pointer, then just let us know, and then we'll try and do that. That would be great. But please leave. I'm gonna, if you want to. And Radha, you can leave if you like. You don't have to stay and listen to my slides again, but I'll just go through them again. Is that all right?
Yeah, of course. Fine.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So here I go, everyone. And for those of you who missed my slides, you might want to, because I know I only let some people in right at the end because folks were leaving, because we only had 100. So